How does a king lose God's favor in a single moment? Not through weakness in battle, but through impatience, a partial obedience, and a failure to trust God's timing. See the reflection, the reading in today's reading, right, from First Samuel chapter 13 and 14. It shows us something sobering. A spiritual collapse often begins not with open rebellion, but with subtle disobedience. As always, welcome back to Under the Word, where we daily wrestle with the scriptures, read the scriptures, not for information, but for formation. This afternoon, I'm reflecting on First Samuel chapter 13 and 14 and Psalm 81. You see, we continue in the books of Samuel, where Saul's kingship is now being tested. Up to this point, Saul has shown promise. But according to the Word Biblical Commentary and the ESV Study Bible, see, these chapters mark the beginning of his decline. The issue is not military failure, it is spiritual failure. God is now primarily concerned with Saul's ability to lead armies, but with his willingness to obey his word. So let's jump in. First Samuel chapter 13, right? So the Philistines threaten, it intensifies, and Israel's army begins to scatter in fear. Saul is waiting for Samuel to arrive and offer sacrifice before the battle. But Samuel delays. Saul takes matter into his own hands. He offers the burnt offering himself, something only reserved for the priest. This act violates God's established order. Kings were not priests. The issue is not merely ritual, it is authority. You see, Saul assumes a role God has not given to him. When Samuel arrives, he confronts Saul. Yes, Saul justifies himself. The people are scattering. You were late. The enemy was gathering. So externally it seems reasonable, but Samuel responds with a devastating verdict. You have done foolishly. And here the Hebrew word for foolish it implies moral and spiritual folly, acting without regard for God. Then comes the turning point. The Lord has sought out a man after his own heart. Saul's dynasty is rejected. You see, this is not because of one isolated mistake, but because this moment reveals a deeper issue. Saul does not trust God's word enough to wait. And then we move to Samuel chapter 14. This chapter contrasts Saul with his son Jonathan. See, Jonathan steps out in faith, saying, Nothing, nothing can hinder the Lord from saving by many or by few. This is a profound theological statement. See, what this is saying is that victory belongs to God, not numbers. And we've seen this in Judges, Gideon, right? With 346 men as after sending so many home. You see, Jonathan initiates an attack with only one armor barrier. God responds with supernatural intervention. Panic spreads among the Philistines. Meanwhile, Saul demonstrates poor leadership. First, he makes a rash oath. No one is to eat until evening. The result? The army becomes weak and ineffective. Jonathan, unaware of the oath, eats honey and is strengthened. When Saul learns this, he is prepared to execute his own son. The people intervene and rescue Jonathan. The contrast is unmistakable. You see, Jonathan acts in faith and wisdom, Saul acts in fear and impulsiveness. You see, according to some of the scholars of the Old Testament. They say that this chapter exposes Saul's inability to lead under God's authority. You see, he binds the people with unnecessary burdens while failing to trust God fully. It's just tragic chapter. And then that moves us to Psalm 81. And this psalm is a covenantal psalm that combines celebration with warning. It begins with joy, calling Israel to worship, but the tone shifts dramatically. And God speaks, I am the Lord your God who brought you up out of the land of Egypt. You see, this should be familiar to us by now. It's a covenantal language, isn't it? But and then it comes the tragedy. But my people did not listen to my voice. And the Hebrew word again here to listen, we've been uh, rehearing this word since Deuteronomy. Right? So it's Shama. It means not just hearing, but really obeying. It's the same verb for hearing and obeying. Israel's problem is not ignorance, is it? It's just refusal. God's response is sobering. So I gave them over to the stubborn hearts. That is the deepest judgment, judicial judgment that God can bestow upon anyone. May God spare you and spare me from giving us over to the stubbornness of our heart. You see, God allows them to experience the consequence of their own disobedience. Yet his desire is still restoration. What an amazing God that we serve. God says, oh, that my people would listen to me. My dear friends, this just reveals God's heart to us. He delights in obedience and longs to bless his people. Let just that dwell upon us. Oh, that my people will listen to me. So when we bring all of this together, see, these passages revolve around one central issue. Will God's people trust and obey him fully? You see, in 1 Samuel chapter 13, Saul fails through impatience. In 1 Samuel chapter 13, Saul fails through impatience. In 1 Samuel chapter 14, Jonathan succeeds through faith. In Psalm 81, Israel is warned about the consequences of refusing to listen. The theological thread is clear, isn't it? Partial obedience is diso- partial obedience is not obedience at all. It's disobedience. Impatience reveals unbelief. And God desires hearts that trust him completely. Here's the truth, right? This ultimately points forward to Christ, the perfect Son who perfectly obeys, but also like he is the perfectly obedient King who fulfills what Saul failed to do. So this reading cuts directly into our daily lives. And I want to just bring up three things I feel are critical in this. So first is it exposes impatience. We often act prematurely when God seems slow. But waiting is not passive, dear friends. It is an expression of faith. It's an expression of trust. And the second thing is that that it confronts partial obedience. You see, Saul did not reject God outright. He adjusted God's command to fit his situation. We often are tempted to do the same, are we not? And then lastly, it calls us to faith like Jonathan's. He acted not based on certainty of outcome, but confidence in God's power. And then Psalm 81, finally, it warns us about hardening our hearts. The greater danger is not failure, but it's actually refusing to shama, to listen, which ultimately is to obey. So, my dear friends, I want to just encourage us. Let us slow down. Let us not rush ahead of God's timing. Let us not reshape his commands to fit our circumstances. Let us listen carefully to his word and not just merely hear it, but obey, live under it. God is not looking for impressive strength. He's looking for faithful hearts. So as always then, I just want to encourage us, let us continue to come back to the word over and over again. Let it shape us, form us, conform us, change us, and make us like Jesus. Let us stay consistent. Let us stay attentive. As always, let us stay under the words. And also, again, I want to thank you so much for watching this video and also for spending part of your day with me. And we got one more reflection, and then we'll be all caught up. God bless you.